a field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas high school football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state into focus. Lone Star Gridiron.
LoneStarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high school football.
Hey, welcome back to the Lone Star Gridiron 2A Ranking Show. I'm Chris Daly, joined always by Coach Travis McLean. How you doing, Coach?
We're making it, man. The weather's finally starting to cool off. It's actually starting to feel like fall now that we've entered October. So all good over here.
I love the fact that we get an 80-degree day and we think it's wonderful.
Right. It's all it is. It's alluding to the 70-degree temperatures that everybody keeps telling me are around the corner. So fingers crossed.
Nice. So as you know, we break down the 2A rankings. We're going to start with 2A D2, then we're going to go to 2A D1. So, Travis, let's jump into D2. The first thing that jumped out to me is Sunray moving up 2 spots. They're the number 4, tied for number 4 right now, and that's largely on the strength of a victory over an Oklahoma team, 68-27 over them. But they've been good all year.
Absolutely. And I think, Sunray was kind of in that category of, they've got to just keep doing what they're doing. They had the loss earlier in the year, and they're one of those teams that as district rolls on, they've got to, for them to climb those last few spots to really get into that top contention. They've got to continue doing what they're doing, winning soundly, winning with confidence, and taking care of business.
Nice. I just remembered to turn the ticker on so people can see the standings. The other one I wanted to mention was Munster and Miles both moved into the top 15 for the first time. Munster with their 32-14 win over Santo. Munster's a team that's traditionally been really good and just hanging outside this top 15, but now they're on there.
Absolutely. And, like you said, Munster is a program that they're going to they're always going to have tough kids. They're always going to produce those hard-nosed football players, especially from a 2A standpoint. And the big thing for them, I think, is the longer this thing goes, the pedigree, the tradition, the expectation, that winning mindset is concrete in those kids, and that's what they expect to do. So do not be surprised if them jumping into the top 15 this week leads to them finding themselves in the top 10 in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. If you think about it, it was, and I may be getting my years wrong. It was not too long ago they were in a state championship. So some of these kids have some experience with that. They may not have played on that team, but I guarantee they had siblings playing on the team, friends playing on the team. So you're right. That pedigree, a team like that knows how to win, expects to win.
Absolutely. And fun story about Munster. So before I got out here to Northeast Texas at Rivercrest, I was at Salina for a little over 7 years, for 8 football seasons. And there were a lot of times where we would have an extra sub-varsity team compared to maybe the school we were playing, just because of the participation numbers that Salina historically has. And Munster never shied away from that game. Munster was a program that always had a sub-varsity, which a lot of 2A Division IIs do not. And they never shied away from that game. And they were not afraid to hit a 4A school in the mouth. Yeah. And so Coach Elliott and the rest of the Salina coaching staff knew whatever coaches were going over for that game or was hosting Munster, you better be ready for some physical football because that's all they know out there.
Yeah, definitely. It will be interesting to watch those guys as the season goes on. We mentioned last time a lot of open weeks. So we don't see a lot of, I guess, important matchups. The one that jumps out to me this week on 2AD2 has to be Chilton and Bremond, right?
And like you said, week 6, week 8, those are the big weeks for bye weeks, which it all kind of depends on the number of teams you have in your district. But I think the Chilton Bremond game, it does present something for those 2A Division II fans to really keep an eye on. It's a game that definitely should be some back and forth, and it should be a close one.
Yeah, definitely. With Bremond at number 11, Chilton at number 4, that's close enough that it's anybody's ball game, I think. If we jump back to Sunray, they're playing Lubbock Christian. I don't know anything about Lubbock Christian other than the fact that they're 5-0. So I don't know what to expect there.
Lubbock Christian, and we've talked about especially small schools playing private schools, but if I'm not mistaken, they are not afraid to play schools of any size.
Right.
That 5-0 record, if my memory doesn't fail me, they've played Waco Riker, which is a bigger private school,
Right.
in Wellington, and they've put up some points. So it's something that I definitely think it should be a good test, but it's hard for me to really get a gauge on how to judge a team up or down when they play a private school, because those teams, you never know what to expect.
Yeah, because sometimes they're loaded, and sometimes they're not close to the private school level. So you have no way of knowing. At least I don't.
Absolutely, and again, to refer back to previous coaching stop, there were years where you play the same when you make your schedules right, when realignment comes out, they're 2-year cycles.
Yeah.
And you could play a private school in year 1, and it could be a freaking heavyweight toe-to-toe bloodbath where body shots are being landed from each side, and then the next year you don't recognize a single kid on their team up or down, because all of the kids that all their varsity kids graduated, and they don't, it's a little bit different because of the turnaround cycle in and out that private schools see from one year to the next of their athletes.
Yeah, definitely. The only other matchup I see in 2AD2 this week, Collinsville is tied for number 4. They're going up against Celeste. I don't know a lot about Celeste. They are 5-1, so they've done well, but I don't know. I haven't put the eyeball test to Celeste. I haven't seen them this year.
Yeah, and I think this game is more about us getting a bead back on what Collinsville's capable of and who they are. There are high expectations for them this season. Mm-hmm. Their lone losses against Cooper, who I can firsthand attest is a dang good football team. Yeah. And when your only loss is against a top 5 program that's in a bigger classification than you, that's saying something. And seeing Collinsville on tape in their game against Cooper, it's they have a high expectation, and this is a first test coming off of a bye week for them to get back into that rhythm that's going to take them into a late season run.
Nice. Anything else you have on 2AD2?
That is it. Pretty, I love the fact that we're seeing Munster pop back into that top 15, and don't let the record fool you. Price Carlisle is another Division II team that's kind of on the outer edge there, and from an athleticism standpoint, they're a team that if they find their rhythm and they find their confidence, they're going to shock and surprise some people over the second half of this season.
Oh, definitely. And I think one of the things you'll notice across all levels is, the rankings don't necessarily correlate to how they finish because of how the districts are laid out and how the regions are laid out. You may have the three of the top 10 teams in the same region. Only one of them is getting out of the region.
100%. And that's something that comes on, and it doesn't matter if it's 2A or if it's 6A. There's always that region of doom or that district of doom. I mean, you look at 4A Division I, I don't know the district number, but you lump Brownwood, Stephenville, and China Springs all in there. Oh yeah, and by the way, La Vega is in that district. And you look at something like that, and they could be, one of those teams could be 5-5, finish 4th place, and be playing in the 4th round, right? And vice versa, you could have a team in a completely different region that goes 10-0 regular season and loses in the 1st round because that district they match up with is loaded with some heavyweights.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned 4A. You see the Wimberley Texans hat there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a region. I mean, it's got Wimberley, Navarro, Cuero, Sinton. I mean, some serious heavy hitters. And again, one's getting out.
Absolutely.
Cool. I'm going to take a 60-second break, and then we'll come back and talk about 2AD1. Maybe. Wrong one. Here.
The dynamic world of business, staying ahead of the curve is crucial. A podcast can be your golden ticket. Why, you ask? First off, it amplifies your authority. You're not just selling products or services, you're sharing knowledge and experiences. You're a thought leader, a beacon in your industry. And then there's the reach. Podcasts cross borders, time zones, and cultures. It's a global marketplace at your fingertips. Next, consider the personal connection. Your voice, your sincerity, resonating in the ears of your audience. It's intimate, it's powerful. Lastly, it's a savvy marketing move. Low cost, high impact. It's your brand's voice, literally and figuratively. So business owners, consider this. A podcast could be your next big step. It's not just about the now, it's about the future. Don't just survive, thrive. Reach out to Chris at Fresh Media Works to find out how to use podcasting to boost your business.
Cool. All right. Well, we're back. We're going to talk 2AD1 now. And I know you don't want to talk about it, but I think we have to mention the Cooper victory over Rivercrest. And for those who don't know, you are the coach of Rivercrest.
Yes. First year out here at Rivercrest High School as the head coach AD. And, one of the very first things I learned about when I took this job and I got familiar out here is the Cooper Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And, Coach Castorino does a great job over there. They've got a great staff. He's a former state champion when he was on the staff at Gunner. And there's a lot of similarities, not just in the schemes, but also in the program structure and things of that nature. That's a great measuring stick for our kids to see where we want to go. And every week matters, and we're trying to win a game every week, but you've got to be able to work towards the short term without losing the scope of the long term. And that's what we talked about in the post game. We played 24 minutes where I felt like we went toe to toe with those kids, and championship caliber programs, they find a way to make adjustments and to finish and put opponents away. And that's what we saw. But they are every bit as advertised. That is for sure.
Nice. So a lot of people, who do rankings say anybody in the top 10 can win a state championship. Do you put a Cooper at number 6, or do you put a Cooper up there with the Timpson, Refugio's, Tollers?
I would say after this week that I was cautious before we played them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say I was a non-believer, but I saw a couple things from their kids that really showed me that they are right up there at the top of that. Now, I will say, kind of segues into one thing I did want to talk about is, we are Region 3, and there is a team at the top of that list that lives in Region 3 that I think that we need to make sure and give their flowers to, because a lot of people take Timpson for granted, just like, oh, here goes Timpson, just doing what Timpson does. But you don't win games the way that they're winning as a flash in the pan. Right. Yes, Terry Bussey is back on the field. He's playing consistently. He just recently committed to Texas A&M, but they were handling top 5 opponents when he was still on the sideline recovering from an injury. And now they're in a midseason groove where you're putting away district opponents 72-0. And anybody will tell you, any level of high school football, it's hard to pitch a shutout.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that we need to make sure that don't forget, don't take it for granted. Anybody who is following 2A football, is 2A Division I, Timpson is at the top for a reason.
Yeah.
And they are primed to make a strong, fast, confident playoff run.
Yeah, definitely. And I've mentioned Refugio a couple times this season. Strong team, young team. They handled Three Rivers, who was supposed to give them more of a threat, pretty handily, 59-14. But I've seen Refugio in person several times. I've seen Timpson on tape. I think there's a pretty big gap between the two right now. I think Timpson is that much stronger.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into, another part of that top tier, the Toller Rattlers. They're in a situation where I think that because of scheduling, Cooper or Honeygrove has an opportunity to make that jump, depending on if they take care of business. Now, Toller, they beat Hamilton 38-0, and they're about to take on a 5-1 Comanche team, or Coleman team. I apologize. And so this is one of the few opportunities I think that they have left to make a statement, to go out, confidently win a game, handle things, be in rhythm early, and control it from the first whistle. And I think that this game is going to tell us a lot about what we can expect second half of the season for sure, but maybe a little bit about moving into the playoffs as well for them.
Definitely. And you mentioned Honeygrove. We have them tied with Cooper. So, but you're about to put eyes on Honeygrove, right?
Yes, we are about to get firsthand experience. There's nothing like playing the number 4 team in the state that, ran into the Timpson Bucksaw last year, but in the third round.
Yeah.
Nothing like following up that with the team tied with them in the rankings, and in our rankings at number 6 in Honeygrove, who's, Coach Fletcher does a great job over there. They are fast, they are aggressive on defense, they fly to the football, and he has some really good athletes that he does a great job of getting into space and getting the ball in their hands. The quarterback athlete, the Morris kid, last year's a freshman, clocked at a 10.78. He holds multiple Power 5 offers as a sophomore playing 2A football. That's somebody that you got to account for on every play. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. As far as newcomers to the list, Panhandle came in at the number 15 spot. They were not ranked previously. What are your thoughts on Panhandle?
I think that, when we get into this part of the season, a team there that is starting to make a climb into the rankings and has a potential to push a little farther. I think a team like Panhandle, they again fall into that category of, okay, you're here. Do you get complacent, or can you continue to do what got you here? Because I think that the environment is set up for them, if they can get into a rhythm, to make a deep run just based off of the way that region that lays out.
Got it. As far as upcoming matchups this week, like to a D2, I see one that stands out to me, and that is in D1. It's Holland versus Thrall. I think that'll be a good contest between those two because they know each other well.
Absolutely. And that's what you're going to see as you get into district play. If you start getting top team matchups in district play, you can throw out all the predictions and analysis because especially if the coaches have a lengthy tenure at both spots, they're going to know each other like the back of their hand. The kids are going to know each other. And they're, to quote one of the greatest football movies of all time, The Waterboy, they're not going to hold anything back. So it's going to be fun to see, especially how matchups like that shake out as we are getting into the trenches of district play. Yeah,
definitely. And talk to me about Holly, because in our rankings, they keep going up one, down one, up one, down one. Pre-season, they were way up there, and then they just started dropping games. But tell me, is that experience of them being state champions last year, Is that what's keeping them up there, or are they truly that strong?
I think it's a little bit of both. You know, when you're a defending state champion, that means something.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword. You're going to get everybody's best shot, which can account for some surprises, especially if you're trying to work in some younger and inexperienced kids. But it can also set you up for failure if your team as a whole isn't quite where they need to be to hold up to that championship caliber. But that's the beauty of high school football. You know, everybody loves to talk about rankings and polls when it comes to college football. But the thing about college football is there's a very, very limited postseason scope, right? We're still in the infant stages of playoffs, quote unquote. And for the longest time, there was nothing of the sort. A team like Holly, you better hope that, depending on how these next 5 games go for them, you better hope that it's not something where they sneak in the back door to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because if they finish 3rd or 4th, who knows what's going to happen, right? But on the off chance that they drop a couple and they end up sliding in district and they finish 3rd or 4th, I wouldn't want to be the district champion that draws them in the first round, right? Because that coaching staff, that experience of those kids, and I've been on the other side of it. When I was at Salina, we've gone in and you know, almost wet the bed as a district champion first round, and I've gone in as a 4th seed and played a district champion and pulled what people called an upset. And a lot of that had to do with the experience that the kids in a program like that have, and they never lose their cool, and they stay focused on the next play, and they're able to, you know, just chop that wood and carry the water to pull out a victory. And I think a program like Holly, the second half of the season, I think they're about to get on a roll and really start to show their championship teeth.
I love it. And anything else you see stands out in 2AD1?
I do not. Like we said, there's, you know, a lot of teams on bye weeks with week 6 and week 8. And, you know, I've got one team that's eating up a lot of my focus right now that's up there in the top of that rankings. And, you know, so I'm going to learn a lot about them over the next few days for sure.
Definitely. All right. Well, once again, thanks for another good show. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Please do us a favor, share it, like it, make a comment, and we'll be definitely back next week.
Gridiron Warriors take the field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas High School Football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state into focus. Lone Star Gridiron.
LoneStarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high